Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on Edward III and we get to hear from Lodowick today, which is an interesting side note. So this play isn't in the folio, but it is in some early publications, and I'm going off of the earlier publication of this play, which acts and scenes, it's a little bit fuzzy. He does kind of delineate some scenes, but not necessarily all of them. So we're saying that this is Act 2, Scene 1, but also the way that things are abbreviated, one might think that this is Lorraine, the Duke of Lorraine, but it's not, because the things that he's saying in the conversation that follows is very obviously not a conversation that King Edward is going to have with this Frenchman who he told to, go back and tell the French king to prepare for war. So this is actually Lodowick, who is one of the king's confidants, a very different sort of character than the Frenchman Lorraine. But if you're going back through earlier texts of Shakespeare's plays, and there's something that doesn't make sense, like this play, not only is there that potential error in it, but there are other places in the play where it's almost like they forgot to mark that these 4 lines in the middle of those 12 actually belong to somebody else. So this is why it's helpful to look at multiple different versions, because lots of people have sat down and said, no, it makes a lot more sense for Lodowick to have said these lines than for Lorraine to. There would be absolutely no reason for Lorraine to be there, and trying to make those choices work as an actor or a director could be interesting. So anyway, we get to hear from Lodowick today, kicking off Act 2, Scene 1, which comes immediately after Act 1, Scene 2, where King Edward had gone to Scotland. He was going to rescue the Countess of Salisbury from her Scottish captors. As soon as the Scots saw the English army coming, they just bolted, so there wasn't even a fight. But upon his arrival, the Countess of Salisbury was very trying to be the gracious hostess and saying, my husband would love to see you too, and please stay for dinner and all that sort of thing. And she managed to finally convince him that yes, he should stay for a little while. And there was some flirting, which Lodowick kind of caught on to. This scene happens immediately after that, and he says, I might perceive his eye in her I lost, his ear to drink her sweet tongue's utterance in changing passion like inconstant clouds that rack upon the carriage of the winds, increase and die in his disturbed cheeks. Lo, when she blushed, even then did he look pale, as if her cheeks by some enchanted power attracted had the cherry blood from his. Anon with reverent fear, when she grew pale, his cheek put on their scarlet ornaments, but no more like her oriental red than brick to coral or live things to dead. Why did he then thus counterfeit her looks? If she did blush, 'twas tender modest shame, being in the sacred presence of a king. If he did blush, 'twas red immodest shame, to wail his eyes amiss, being a king. If she looked pale, 'twas silly woman's fear, to bear herself in presence of a king. If he looked pale, it was with guilty fear, to dote amiss, being a mighty king. Then Scottish wars, farewell. I fear 'twill prove a lingering English siege of peevish love. Here comes His Highness walking all alone. So Lodowick is trying to sort of parse out what was happening just now, because he was watching the color in both Edward's cheeks and the Countess of Salisbury's cheeks when they were talking, and trying to note who was blushing at one time. And at the end of this, he's talking about, it would make sense for her to either blush or become pale because she was in the presence of a king, and that's what silly women do when they're in the presence of powerful men. But if he either blushed or went pale, like that says something completely different, given that he's a king and she's a married woman. But then Lodowick is like, well, regardless, we don't get to fight the Scottish people now. They all ran away, so now we're gonna lay siege to this castle so that he can hang out with her some more, I guess. And then he notices that Edward King Edward III is walking in, and of course, as kings do, King Edward is going to enter the scene with a monologue, which we will hear tomorrow. So I'll see you then for that. Mwah.